2019 is finally over, and I think I speak for everyone when I say it was certainly a year. From Keanu Reeves making a surprise appearance at E3 to Anthem in general, it's fair to say that the games industry had some soaring highs and some crushing lows in 2019. Now that we're finally free of last year's suffocating embrace, why don't you join me as we take a look back at the highs and lows of the games industry in 2019. On the 25th of January, EA released a timed demo for their upcoming looter shooter Anthem. Following a lukewarm reception to an early gameplay demo at E3 2018, one that most critics deemed visually impressive but thematically dull, EA and developer BioWare needed a win. This timed technical test was their opportunity to regain control of the conversation, dominate the headlines, and bring Anthem into the spotlight where it rightfully belonged. In a sense, they got their wish. Anthem's demo was a technical disaster, plagued by long loading times, a lack of a shared social space, and rough performance even on high-end PCs. The demo served as a poor advertisement for the final product. Undeterred, BioWare went back to work, reassuring players that by the time the game was released in a few weeks' time, the majority of issues would be ironed out. The community at large responded with a shrug. No one really cared about Anthem to begin with, and their apathy remained unchanged following the demo. All fans really wanted was a sequel to Mass Effect or Dragon Age, and pre-release footage made it quite clear that you couldn't even shard anyone in your big metal exoskeleton, so what was even the point? Anthem released on February 22nd. Sort of. I mean, technically it released on February 15th to premium subscribers of Origin Access, but look, I'm not trying to be funny. If you need an Excel spreadsheet to work out when your game is releasing, you've done something wrong. This isn't good or normal. Stop doing this. Can we just collectively agree to stop doing this now? Thanks. If the reaction to Anthem's demo could be considered lukewarm at best, the reaction to its official launch was little short of ice cold. The long loading times, frequent crashes, and poor performance remained, and new additions such as the promised shared social hub felt rushed and half-baked. On top of this, the game itself just wasn't very fun to play. Although flying was certainly enjoyable and combat was serviceable, the segmented nature of the world meant exploration was frequently interrupted by those previously mentioned chonky loading times. Quests, a pretty vital aspect of any modern-day online looter shooter, forced players to grind through a ridiculously long list of chores in order to make little progress. Fort Tarsus, the game's single-player hub and the area built to be the part of the game that would appeal to long-time BioWare fans by including NPCs delivering story-driven content, felt dull and lifeless. A far cry from the fully rounded characters and engaging narratives included in previous BioWare titles. Even basic features, such as the ability to swap equipment mid-mission, were straight up missing. Not that swapping weapons even made a difference, because players quickly realised that an early patch designed to improve how Anthem handled its scaling difficulty was fundamentally broken. The change saw damage dealt be based not on the player's overall level, like most other games, but the gun they were using at the time, making the best weapon in the entire game the level 1 assault rifle. That's the default starting gun given to all players when they first create a character. That's hilarious. As the pile of issues began to mount, BioWare went into hiding. New content patches were released infrequently, senior level staff began to resign, and all future content was delayed indefinitely after the game's first major event, Cataclysm, was pushed back as the team scrambled to fix the game following its disastrous release. As the winter turned to spring, BioWare's official channels would go weeks without communicating to their players. Not a great look for a game that sold itself as a Destiny-style live service experience where consistent updates are key to their success. Although both EA and BioWare kept insisting the game was still being actively developed, fans weren't so sure. Compared to Apex Legends, the free-to-play battle royale shooter developed by EA-owned developers Respawn Entertainment, Anthem appeared to be far from the top of the publisher's list of priorities. Nearly 12 months since its release, Anthem remains in a sorry state. Although the majority of the content included in the game's initial roadmap has since been released, the game itself feels like one close to being shuttered completely. In last year's Black Friday sales, copies of Anthem on console could be picked up for a price as low as £5. A price drop that low for a game that was released in the same year? That's not normally a sign of rude health. Towards the end of the year, rumours began to circulate that EA, clearly keen to see some return from their investment in the project, are retooling the entire game in order to relaunch it as some form of Anthem 2.0 in 2020. It's A move that could work in Anthem's favour and has proven successful for other troubled online games in the past. Following the disastrous launch of Final Fantasy XIV in 2010, Square Enix worked hard to re-release the game 3 years later as Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, an overhauled version of the original game that is now considered to be one of the finest MMOs since World of Warcraft. Regardless of what the future holds, one thing is for sure: Anthem was 2019's biggest failure. Let's hope BioWare's next project, the rumoured Dragon Age 4, is a return to form for the beloved RPG developer. While we're on the subject of botched releases, it would be unfair to not mention Doodle's Styria. Announced in March, Styria is a streaming platform that utilises Doodle's network of data centres in order to deliver high-quality 4K gaming without the need for a console. In theory, the premise sounded promising, but concerns were quickly raised around input lag. That's the time it takes for a system to register a button press and perform an expected action. Doodle quickly promised that even with moderate internet speeds, input lag will be comparable to that of a home console, especially when using their £100 controller that connected directly to the data centres where Styria called home. The more Doodle revealed about Styria over the following months, the more everyone started asking questions. What's the point in a streaming service if games have to be purchased individually for the same price as they are on other consoles? What's the point in subscribing to the premium Stadia service if the only game you get for free is Destiny 2, a game that was announced as going free to play on the same day Stadia was initially revealed? What's the point in any of this, considering Doodle's reputation for throwing ideas into a big bin as soon as they don't find immediate success? As Stadia's release date of November 19th drew closer, Doodle hosted a Q&A session on Reddit that could be fairly described as awful. In it, they revealed that the majority of features promised since the system's initial reveal wouldn't be ready for the system's imminent launch. Achievements, 4K HDR and 5.1 surround sound streaming on PC, the Buddy Pass feature, allowing you and one friend to enjoy Stadia together, the ability to live stream gameplay via YouTube, huge features that made the system unique. None of them would be available on day one. Combined with a meager launch lineup consisting of only 12 games, 3 of which were Tomb Raider titles and only one was a Stadia exclusive, it was fair to say that Stadia's pristine Styria was beginning to show unforgivable cracks. Early reviews for the system were, in fairness, fine. Critics found the experience of being able to play a high-quality console experience on any device without waiting for updates a genuinely magical experience, but were sorry to report that input lag was a prominent issue, regardless of internet speed. In a last-ditch effort to get people excited, Doodle added an additional 10 games to its lineup a few days before its release, but it made no difference. Stadia launched with as much impact as a wet fart in a whirlpool, and was easily the weakest console launch of the decade. Even more than the 3DS. Even more than... Wait, when did the Ouya come out? Oh. Alright, second. Second weakest console launch of the decade. Wait, when did the Mad Tats Mojo come out? Who knows what 2020 holds in store for Stadia? Maybe Doodle will uncover a niche that allows it to finally find an audience. Maybe it will pivot its business model to that of a subscription-based service, such as Netflix or Xbox Game Pass. Maybe it'll just continue to durdle and grunt its way into an early grave. Whatever happens, it's been fascinating to see Doodle, a titan of the tech industry, stumble into an area they could have so easily dominated. Also, remember at the Stadia launch event, where Doodle had glass cabinets that contained failed gaming tat, such as the Dreamcast, the Power Glove, and a copy of E.T. on the Atari? I think this was meant to be like a marketing flex to showcase how they've learned from the mistakes of the past, but the fact that it ended up as an omen of their own incompetence is hilarious. Good work, Doodle, you mad, evil bastards. Before we move on, I'd like to give an honorary shout out to Ghost Recon Breakpoint, a game that launched in such a broken state that it caused Ubisoft to have a panic attack and delay its entire upcoming slate of releases by 12 months. Just great work to all involved. Fallout 76 dominated headlines when it released in 2018 for being a buddy, broken, boring mess. I'd like to say it had a better 2019. But I'd be lying. Despite frequent patches that attempted to squash bugs, the majority of updates released this year brought Fallout 76 in new and exciting ways. A personal highlight was this power armor glitch, which transformed players into mutants far worse than the ones that already exist within the Fallout universe. Look at the state of this. Bethesda even had issues that extended outside of the Wasteland too. A collectible Brotherhood of Steel helmet had to be retold after it was discovered that the materials used to line the inside of the item caused lung disease, and a leather jacket designed to replicate the in-game jumpsuits worn by the citizens of Vault 76 caused controversy when customers discovered that they looked less like the sexy leather attire from the game and more so like a wearable IT Atari bard. But in October 2019, 12 months after the game's initial release, Bethesda made a decision so ridiculous all other issues seemed inconsequential as a result. That decision was Fallout First. Fallout First is a premium subscription model for Fallout 76. For just $13 a month, players can gain access to private servers, exclusive emotes, and a raft of quality of life improvements such as unlimited storage, a feature fans have been begging for since the game's release. That's right, Bethesda looked at the features most requested by the few lone souls who stuck with their broken game for 12 months and decided to lock them behind a paywall.
Game's over, losers! I have all the money! Compare your lives to mine and then kill yourselves!
As if the audacity of slapping a monthly subscription cost on top of a full-price game wasn't bold enough, the features themselves didn't even work. Players reported that items they were storing within their premium scrap boxes were vanishing completely, and that their private worlds were freely accessible to anyone who just fancied popping in and having a nosy around. The whole situation escalated to the point where the community, angered by Bethesda's decision to charge money for improvements to the core gameplay, began to vent their frustration by starting a full-blown class war. Fallout First players were targeted within the game's adventure mode by those who opposed the service, resulting in a civil war between the bourgeoisie first subscribers and the proletariat players who refused to pay that offered a more compelling and engaging narrative than anything Bethesda included in the actual game. Also, someone bought the URL falloutfirst.com before Bethesda could, and made a parody page that rightly shit all over the announcement. Sometimes the internet is good, actually. On a more serious note, Bethesda weren't the only publisher to implement invasive monetary practices within their games last year. On the one hand, we had Activision, who, after promising that there would be no microtransactions included within Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, added a paid currency into the game after the glut of positive reviews had already convinced players to pick it up for full price. Thanks, Activision. It's just what this remake of a 20-year-old game for children needed. Microtransactions. Elsewhere, we had none other than Nintendo implementing a Dacia-style unlock system and a £5 a month subscription service into their eagerly awaited Mario Kart mobile app. And if that wasn't bad enough, a few months later they implemented 2 paid subscription models into the already microtransaction-heavy Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Is nothing sacred? In 2019, with loot boxes facing government scrutiny and potential fines looming over major publishers, subscription services became the new hotness. Why just charge £50 for a brand new game when you can also charge between £5 to £15 on top of that initial price? This industry is broken. I shouldn't admit this, but I've been playing Mario Kart Tour since it came out, every single day. I love that app. I think that's really fun. I haven't spent any money on it, but yeah, I really liked it. I'm trash. I'm a trash baby. Throw me in the bin. Ah! Released in September 2018, the Xbox Adaptive Controller is a specialised and heavily customisable controller that allows players with disabilities to play their favourite Xbox games in a way that works best for them. Although a little on the pricey side, the Adaptive Controller has been largely hailed as a success by both charities and players alike, and serves as a powerful show of support from a major console manufacturer for widespread inclusivity within the industry. During the 2019 Super Bowl, Microsoft doubled down on this stance, focusing their entire advertising campaign on the adaptive controller and the players it helps.
My name is Grover.
Sean. My name is Ian.
I'm Taylor.
My name is Owen, and I am 9.5 years old.
During its 1 minute and 57-second runtime, the commercial showed a group of children playing games with their friends. That was it. The commercial showed how the adaptive controller, with its support for multiple bespoke add-ons and customizable configurations, allows these kids to play the games they want to play without compromise. It's a wonderful, beautiful piece of publicity, and I cry every time I watch it because I'm a big sentimental baby. Fuck you.
No matter how your body is or how fast you are, you can play. It's a really good thing to have in this world.
Yeah, Okay, I get it. It might seem a little disingenuous, seeing as it's an advert for a product created by a huge tech company that wants to sell more consoles, but the adaptive controller represents a wonderful trend within the industry, whereby developers are taking the necessary steps to create experiences that can be enjoyed by anyone. In 2019, we saw a huge number of games come included with advanced accessibility settings that accommodate those with motor and cognitive disabilities, colour blindness, low vision, and those who are deaf or hard of hearing. Although the launch of From Software's excellent Sekiro raised furious debates around difficulty in video games, the conversation resulted in some interesting conclusions, ones reflected in major releases throughout the year that allow players of all skill levels to take part in the fun. As an industry, we keep getting better and ensuring that no one gets left behind. Video games are for everyone, after all, and in 2019, developers implemented features into their games that put that ethos into action. All Microsoft's commercial did was show the effects these essential additions have on those who need them the most. For more information about the state of video game accessibility in 2019, make sure to watch Mark Brown's excellent video on the subject over on his channel, Game Maker's Toolkit. It's one of the best of the year. Alright, this one's not fun. Companies are bad. This should come as no surprise to anyone. They're killing the planet, they're controlling the media, and they're gathering our data in order to digitally enslave us, just like Hideo Kojima predicted in that game he made about getting pissed on by men in balaclavas. Maybe I missed the point of that one, actually. I mean, there was a lot of talking, in my defense. In 2019, companies continued to be bad. It's shit, but we have to talk about it. In February, Activision announced they had achieved record financial results for 2018. At the same time, they laid off 800 employees, 8% of their workforce. Gone. While our financial results for 2018 were the best in our history, we didn't realise our full potential, Activision CEO Bobby Kotick said in their annual earnings report. The layoffs were a result of a restructuring project that aimed to cull any non-development roles from the business. In March, EA laid off 350 members of staff in order to address their challenges. It wasn't just layoffs either. Following the release of Anthem, Kotaku published a report detailing the troubled development of the game. In it, journalist Jason Schreier documented the sheer amount of crunch required to ship a product that was mismanaged from the very start. In the same month, Polygon published a report that revealed the extreme amount of hours and intense pressure imposed on staff at Epic Games in order to create fresh content for Fortnite, a game infamous for changing on a weekly basis. Elsewhere, women in the industry had their Me Too moment, calling out their abusers over a number of days that highlighted the full extent of the toxic misogyny that lies at the heart of an industry primarily dominated by men. Not for the first time, the headlines of 2019 painted a grim picture of the state of game development. If any good came from this, it was the calls for unionisation among workers in the industry, a movement that is beginning to gain momentum. The more we talk about protecting the labourers who create our games, the more normalised it becomes for them to band together in order to keep each other safe. Being made redundant or forced to work horrendous hours in order to meet deadlines or being harassed and abused by colleagues and management is a horrible experience. In 2020, let's hold those who throw their workers' lives into disarray accountable for their actions. Toxic environments and crunch culture aren't healthy. They aren't fair, but most of all they aren't necessary. Let's never forget the human cost behind the games we love so much. E3 2019 was a bit boring, wasn't it? It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. With new consoles only a year away from hitting shop shelves, this year's conference was a severely reserved affair, with most major publishers and console manufacturers saving the majority of their exciting next-gen announcements for E3 2020 instead. To be honest, E3 2019 was so uneventful that if it wasn't for a certain surprise celebrity appearance at Microsoft's conference, I probably wouldn't have even bothered mentioning it on this list.
Cyberpunk.
So thank God for Keanu Reeves.
Okay, but let me tell you, the feeling of being there, of walking the streets of the future, is really going to be breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're breathtaking. You're all breathtaking.
This was my favourite moment of the year. That's it. That's all there is to say. To be fair, that reveal when Johnny Silverhand leant down and took his glasses off and revealed himself to be Keanu Reeves, and everyone in the crowd just went mad because they'd realised that Keanu Reeves was going to be a huge character in this game. And then it took back to the arena and that partition went up and there was just a Keanu Reeves shaped silhouette surrounded by smoke. That was magic. It's moments like that that made me just love E3. Since we're on the subject of E3, there's something that's been troubling me since Microsoft's conference. There was a moment when Phil Spencer came out and a woman stood up and did this. I've been thinking about this since June. Who does this? What possessed someone to do this? Who stands up and does it? Who are you, mysterious Xbox woman? I want to speak to you. Let me peek into your world. What were you thinking? Also, I should probably mention that the people who organise E3 managed to leak all of the private information of all of the media and influencers who went to E3 this year. So effectively, the people who run E3 doxed everyone they invited to the show, which is, I mean, that's peak games industry, and it sucks, and like, dud fucking job, E3, you absolute wanters. So I actually straight up refuse to talk about the controversy surrounding Pokemon Sword and Shield, a game about collecting cute monsters made for children. And if that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about the severity of fan backlash towards developers in 2019, then I don't know what will. On October 6th, a professional Hearthstone player known as Chun won a Grandmasters tournament. Following his victory, Chun was interviewed on the official Hearthstone stream. Wearing a face mask, Chun shouted, "Liberate Hon Ton, revolution of our age." The stream quickly cut to commercial, and all footage of the incident was pulled offline shortly after. 2 days later, Blizzard Entertainment, the developers of Hearthstone and the organisers of the Grandmasters tournament, issued Chun with a 12-month ban from participating in the competitive scene and revoked his $10,000 cash prize for violating their rules about taking a political stance during an official tournament. The internet did not take kindly to this decision. Throughout 2019, the citizens of Hon Ton protest against a proposed law that would allow China to extradite citizens from the city for judiciary reasons. Donning masks, the protesters have campaigned diligently for liberation and freedom from Chinese rule. Outrage against Blizzard's decision to strip Chun of his prize money and ability to compete was understandable on its own, but many began to question whether Blizzard's decision was less about enforcing a rule and more about their interests in conducting business within the Chinese market. In 2018, Blizzard announced Diablo Immortal, a mobile-only version of their hugely popular action RPG. For fans eagerly awaiting the next installment in the Diablo franchise, this announcement was received poorly.
Just was wondering, is this an out-of-season April Fool's joke?
But for Blizzard themselves, the development of a mobile-only Diablo made a lot of sense. Creating mobile games for the Chinese market is a modern-day tech gold rush, after all. Mobile ports of popular games like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds and Call of Duty have generated billions of dollars for their respective publishers, and a property with as much replay potential as Diablo is ripe for financial exploitation in the mobile space, especially in China, a country that boasts both high smartphone usage and the world's biggest population. Blizzard aren't in the wrong for developing a new installment of one of their most popular franchises for mobile devices. It's a savvy business move, and it's not like they're the first to do so. Their issue was that they announced it at their annual conference as if the game was a true successor to Diablo 3 to a group of die-hard fans. I don't agree with the backlash that occurred as a result of that announcement, but I can understand it. It was a weird move. But in the wake of Chun's punishment, people started to look at Diablo Immortal in a different light. Were Blizzard so quick to position themselves against Chun's comments on the situation in Hon Ton because they saw it as a simple rule violation? Or because they were protecting the Diablo Immortal project, a game that is primed to succeed in Chinese markets and is developed by NetEase, one of China's largest and most prolific video game developers? The geopolitical situation that is occurring in Hon Ton is too complicated for me to talk about within this video on my silly channel about video games, but I will say this. Blizzard's decision was quickly executed, poorly communicated, and reflected so badly on the company that 2 US senators wrote an open letter to the company that effectively just said stop being assholes. It was an example of a major tech company punishing freedom of speech in order to protect their bottom line, and that is never okay. Blitzchun eventually got his prize money back and his ban was severely reduced, but the damage had already been done, until a few weeks later when Blizzard announced Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4, and all was forgiven because hooray for video games. Probably shouldn't forget about this, it was quite serious. Speaking of companies making ridiculous PR decisions that we absolutely should not forget about, 2019 was the year THQ decided to host an AMA on 8chan, a website created because its founders thought 4chan was too woke. 8chan, a website that has been banned for hosting child pornography. Understandably, a perfect place to host a Q&A for your quickly growing video game publishing company. Nothing could possibly go wrong. No. Oh God, no. Why? Don't worry, the apology made by THQ shortly after every publication on the planet told them out and it was very new. Oh no, how did this get worse? How did this happen? What a time to be alive. Shout out to Marth. The fuck is wrong with everyone? In October 2007, Valve released the Orange Bots, a compilation package that consisted of 3 games.
What's inside the orange box? The best game of all time. Brain melting offbeat genius. The deepest multiplayer game of the year. The Orange Box, October 10th. Rated T2M.
There was the cartoon, class-based online shooter Team Fortress 2, the mind-bending puzzle FPS Portal, and the second expansion path for the developer's seminal sci-fi shooter Half-Life 2 Episode 2. After watching the end credits roll on another short but sweet adventure, fans of the series had only one wish. When would Valve release the thrilling conclusion to the saga of Gordon Freeman? When could they expect to see Half-Life 2 Episode 3, or indeed a full-blown sequel in the form of Half-Life 3? Over the course of the next few years, Valve remained silent on the matter. After all, they were too busy finishing up work on other projects, such as Portal 2 and Counter-Strike Global Offensive, while maintaining their hugely popular Steam storefront and platform. Then, in June of 2013, Valve released Dota 2. A sequel to the hugely successful mod for Warcraft 3, Dota 2 was a landmark release for the company that capitalised on the growing popularity of the MOBA genre. Valve, now drowning in the cash that both Dota 2 and the Steam platform in general were generating for them, made an executive decision. Fuck video games. Why make any other game when this one about elves battering each other was generating millions in revenue every single day? Why bother making another Half-Life when 400 hentai match 3 puzzle games release on Steam every day, and Valve did a cut of the profits? Why do anything at all, ever again? Over the last few years, Valve's apathy towards their own properties spoke volumes. Half-Life 3, at this point little more than a meme.
The line is triple kill. Triple, 3, as in you've killed 3 heroes.
I don't understand. You've killed more than 2 people and less than 4.
Yeah, you know, that's technically right. You nailed it. We're good.
Yeah, Gaben.
Was vaporware, a 12-year-old promise that would never be fulfilled, a dream that fades within the crisp morning light but lingers on the periphery of consciousness for a few moments long. Oh, hold on, sorry. Valve have just tweeted something on this, random Monday in November. Let me just check it. I'm sure it won't be anything important. I mean, it's just Valve, right? What do they have to announce? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. After over a decade of silence, Valve announced in November 2019 that they were reviving the Half-Life franchise in the form of Half-Life Alyx, a VR-exclusive spin-off title that focuses on fan-favourite character Alyx Vance. Set between the events of Half-Life and Half-Life 2, Alyx sees players fighting Combine soldiers through the streets of City 17 in what looks to be the series' most immersive entry yet. Fans were understandably gobsmacked. A brand new Half-Life game after 12 years of waiting. And it's a VR game. Although disappointment was tangible among the vast majority of the fanbase, the simple fact that a new entry in the Half-Life series exists was exciting enough to outweigh any concerns over it being VR only. Valve themselves were quick to reassure fans that the game wasn't exclusive to their own proprietary VR hardware, announcing that Alyx can be played on pretty much every headset available on the market. I don't think it can be understated how wild a decision that is. Valve, a company that has invested millions in developing and manufacturing their own VR hardware, have decided to create a killer app for the medium as a whole in order to generate interest in what is still very much a fringe pastime. This is pretty much the equivalent of Nintendo announcing they're releasing the new Mario game on Switch, PC, PS4 and Xbox One in an attempt to renew faith in the concept of home video game consoles in general. So yeah, this is a pretty big deal. And not only that, but by making the next installment in the franchise a spin-off title, Valve have seemingly found the best way of living up to the unrealistic expectations fans have spent 12 years cultivating for the ethereal Half-Life 3. No company could create a version of Half-Life 3 that would make fans happy, but Half-Life Alyx? That is a smart way of wiping the slate clean. Good work, Valve. Where the hell was this version of you when you decided to announce and release Artifact? Releasing next March, it's fair to say that Half-Life Alyx will be one of 2020's most prolific releases. But in 2019, its mere announcement was one of the most unexpected and thrilling events of the year. While we're on the subject of Half-Life Alyx, I would also like to talk about how Shenmue 3 and Kingdom Hearts 3 came out in 2019. The fact that you can play Shenmue 3 and Kingdom Hearts 3 and Half-Life 3 comes out in a few months' time is wild. We live in strange times. When's that Duke Nukem Forever coming out? That's what I want to know. Wait a minute. After a relatively low-key E3 press conference in 2018 that consisted of an old man in a tent playing a guitar and a slightly younger man in a slightly larger room playing a bit of flute, Sony announced that they wouldn't be attending E3 in 2019 for the first time since the show began 24 years ago. It was a shocking announcement, but not an entirely unexpected one. When Nintendo announced in 2013 that they would be replacing their costly E3 conferences with a more tightly focused pre-recorded direct, that was met with shock. E3 is such a monumental event in the gaming calendar that for one of the three major players in the industry to not attend felt like marketing suicide. But Nintendo being Nintendo, the direct formula paid off dividends, and now the multiple directs broadcast throughout the year feel like miniature E3s that every fan awaits with optimistic excitement. So Sony's decision to pass on E3 this year was unexpected but not surprising. Neither was their announcement in March that they would be emulating Nintendo's direct formula with their own State of Play series that promised to deliver chunks of PlayStation news multiple times throughout the year. Sony's decision to miss E3 and launch their own series of directs is first and foremost a reflection on a changing industry, one that attempts to keep the conversation going throughout the year instead of competing for headlines with several other publishers over 3 days every June. There are quite simply too many games, and it makes sense for a manufacturer to diversify their marketing strategy in order to maximize their sales potential. But Sony choosing to take this route felt weird. For instance, instead of taking up a huge portion of a presentation broadcasted live, Death Stranding's release date was announced via a trailer that dropped on a random Wednesday afternoon. The PlayStation 5 was officially revealed via a Wired article twice. Gone was the fanfare, the spectacle, the magic usually attached to a reveal as big as the release date of the biggest exclusive of the year or a brand new generation of consoles. Instead, Sony's decision to play it cool came across as boring. A dry fart of an announcement instead of a thunderous wet... Wait, I've lost my point here. It felt wrong. Dull. Vacant of energy. I mean, look at the state of this. What were they thinking? Also, don't even get me started about the State of Play series. With the exception of the September video where The Last of Us 2 received a release date, not that it mattered because it was delayed about a month later, Sony's State of Play presentations somehow managed to feel more dull than a Wired article about the PlayStation 5. 20 to 30 minutes of absolute tedium. No surprises, no energy, no fun. Apart from the one where they announced Resident Evil 3. That one was alright. That one was good. I'll give them a pass on that one. Been a quiet year for Sony, basically. One where its entire lineup of exclusives consisted of Norman Reedus and the Funky Fetus, and goddamn Days Gone. Yeah, Days Gone. That launched in 2019. I do not blame you if you forgot. Sony will be back at E3 in 2020 to showcase the PlayStation 5. That much I can guarantee. But in 2019, the company did surprisingly little to keep players engaged in their brand, unlike a certain other Japanese console manufacturer. Sick of prits like me laughing at moments like this that occurred far too frequently during their annual E3 presentations, Nintendo said fuck you to the entire show in 2013, opting instead to broadcast one of their recently launched pre-recorded presentations in order to ensure this didn't happen again. "2019 marked 8 years since the first Nintendo Direct, and 7 since they turned their back on expensive E3 press conferences, shaping the industry to its core and arguably revolutionising the way console manufacturers communicate with their audiences. Nearly a decade on from their introduction, Nintendo Directs remain a high point for gaming fans across the globe, with hundreds and thousands tuning in to witness 20 to 40 minutes of carefully curated announcements, gameplay demonstrations and surprise reveals. Although Sony and Microsoft have attempted to replicate the success success of Nintendo's directs, none of their efforts come close to capturing the manic speculation and furious devotion Nintendo fans feel towards what are effectively trailer compilations with someone asking if you're having fun in between every fourth video.
So, what do you think?
Still, Nintendo pulled out some genuine shotters this year. Pokemon Sword and Shield, Banjo-Tooie for Smash, SNES themes being added to the online service for no extra charge, Metroid Prime 4 being thrown into a big ditch and given back to series creators Retro Studios, Breath of the Wild 2? Once again, Nintendo managed to dominate the headlines throughout the year through their continued use of their directs, purposefully designed to drip feed huge announcements throughout the year instead of all at once on stage in LA every June, like they're the undefeated champion of the annual West Coast masturbation contest. I'm talking about you here, Microsoft, spunting 2 hours of announcements all over my face at every E3 like you're some kind of jizz fountain and I'm a thirsty. However, in September 2019, Nintendo completely blew every other announcement out of the water by revealing Deadly Premonition 2.
Deadly Premonition 2, A Blessing in Disguise, boggles and beguiles on Nintendo Switch in 2020.
Deadly Premonition is arguably my favourite game of all time. A mad survival horror adventure crossed with a life simulator, Deadly Premonition is a cult classic in every sense of the phrase. The last thing I ever expected was a sequel, never mind one revealed via a Nintendo Direct, but it's real. And you can ride a skateboard. I literally can't wait. This one trailer was my game of the year 2019. It's a lovely day in September, and everyone is talking about a certain horrible fuck me. Every so often, a game becomes so popular that it breaks through into mainstream culture to the point where even traditional media takes notice. In 2016, it was Pokemon Go, last year it was Fortnite, this year it was Untitled Deuce. Shortly after its release, a story about the feathery bastard appeared on the front page of the BBC News website. A few days after that, the New York Times wrote a think piece about the webbed-footed menace. The deuce was, well and truly, loose. Look, I hate that. I've made that joke. Let's just move on, please. Do you know how long it takes me to write these things? I'm not naturally funny. And that was the best I could come up with. There's a very shallow pool of deuce-related jokes I could think of. Deuce Theme's popularity is, in my mind, the result of a number of factors working together in a state of perfect symbiosis. For starters, the concept is simple. Deuce are awful. This is known. Deuce Theme is accessible. There are no confusing UI elements cluttering the screen, no complicated mechanics to learn, no confusing button combinations. Best of all, there are no fail states either. The Deuce will at worst get shooed away, making for a game that contains few consequences and as a result makes for a gentle experience that those new to the medium can easily pick up and enjoy. Finally, it's funny. In an old-school slapstick kind of way. Deuce Theme may be entirely scripted, sharing more in common with a classic LucasArts point-and-click adventure than an open-ended simulation sandbox like Hitman, but the jokes are perfectly executed and enjoyable by players of all ages. Combined, Deuce Theme was always destined to succeed. A wonderful video game that captured the imagination and attention of many even if they'd never picked up a controller before in their entire life. A triumph in accessibility, and a damn fun game to boot. You're right, Sakurai, it's me, it's Liam. Yeah, man, how are you? Yeah, I was just wondering, could you put Untitled Deuce into Smash for me, please? Oh, no, stop shouting, stop In 2019, Fortnite continued to be the biggest game of the year, albeit one with slightly smaller player numbers and profits compared to 2018. As Battle Royale fatigue began to set in among the general player base, and surprise rivals such as Respawn's Apex Legends offered an equally polished free-to-play experience for more hardcore players, Fortnite's crown began to slip ever so slightly towards the end of the summer months. So, as autumn rolled around, Epic said, "Fuck it. Turn it off." And so they did. An estimated 6 million people tuned in to watch the climactic event of Season 8, which resulted in a black hole laying waste to the now iconic original island. A cosmic catastrophe that even sucked up the main menu and rendered the game unplayable for nearly 2 whole days. As far as publicity stunts though, completely disabling your extremely popular and extremely profitable video game for nearly 2 days is quite the baller move. Despite months of apathy, Fortnite was suddenly all anyone could talk about. What happened to the original island? What do Epic have planned for the next season of the game? What will emerge from the other side of the foreboding black hole? Well, when Fortnite did finally re-emerge, fans were treated to Chapter 2, a soft reboot of the game that reset the previously cluttered island with one that felt like a blank slate. Weapons were cut back to a conservative conservative selection of fan favourites, and a lot of the game's sillier additions such as mechs were completely removed. Combined with a refresh system for unlocking Battle Pass goodies that utilised XP instead of those arbitrary shields, a daily punch-card reward system and a fresh lick of paint, Chapter 2 really felt like the new start for the game. In the few months since its release, Chapter 2 has received a sparse amount of new content. Whereas the previous island would see new weapons, vehicles, and huge crossover events on a near weekly basis, Chapter 2's island has seen few additions, spare a timed Star Wars event that added lightsabers, which were amazing, and a few minor points of interest appearing on the map to celebrate the game's Christmas event. For many, including me, this slower approach to updates has made the game feel far more appealing. After a 9-month break, I jumped back into Fortnite with a renewed sense of enthusiasm I hadn't felt for the game since March 2018. Chapter 2 wiped the slate clean for the world's biggest game, and proved once again that when it comes to reinvention, no game is as up for making sweeping, necessary changes as Fortnite. Long may the tin of video games continue to reign supreme. Okay, this one was a personal highlight. In October, Deadly Premonition creator Swery and No More Heroes creator Suda51 announced a surprise press conference in order to reveal a brand new game that the two were working on together. The conference was predictably nonsense. The two auteurs drank beer and casually revealed that, despite the project technically being in development for over a year, the conference was only announced to force them to discuss something, as every time the pair had met up to talk about the game previously, they ended up getting too drunk and forgetting everything they had discussed. What followed was basically two mates having a brainstorming session live for the world to observe. They decided on the spot that the game would be called Hotel Barcelona, just because they fancied going to Barcelona. They announced it would be a horror game for Styria, or Switch, or maybe mobile. They wanted to bear similarities to PS2 cult classic Siren, so much so that immediately after declaring this, they texted the director of Siren, asking if he wanted to help them make the game, partly because they thought he'd be a good fit for the project, but mostly because they just enjoyed drinking with him. He texted back yes, he'd be interested. It was a weirdly touching moment. Finally, they announced that punt indie publisher Devolver Digital would be publishing the game, an announcement so surprising, even Devolver Digital weren't aware of it. Never change, you beautiful bastards. Even if Hotel Barcelona never becomes a thing, this live stream was a treat all on its own. So, there we have it, a list of all of the highs and lows of the games industry in 2019. Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the year that was. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please comment, and please subscribe. All of these things really help the channel. They really do. They make me very happy. Do you want to make me happy? It's 2020. We're only like a few days into 2020. You want to make me smile? You want to make me smile? Like the video. What a weird way of asking for that. All that's left to say is thank you for sticking with 7 out of 10 throughout 2019. It's been a great year, and I am super excited about 2020. Got some great ideas that I'm really excited to share with you. So if you haven't subscribed already, do that now if you enjoyed this, and if you've been subscribed for a while, thank you. Genuinely, thank you. I hope you all have a fantastic new year, and I will see you very soon.